Now, how far does Greninja really go when we talk about Ash's strongest Pokemon? So today, we're gonna scale one of my favorite Pokemon in the entire franchise. And no, I'm not automatically saying he's the strongest because he's my favorite, but Greninja always had some of the coolest moments in Pokemon history. Honestly, it's always between Charizard, Greninja, and Lucario for me, but Greninja just had that aura that made him feel different from every other Pokemon Ash ever had. Now, before we even rank him against Pokemon like Charizard, Lucario, and Pikachu, we first gotta scale his entire journey throughout XY and XYZ, because Greninja didn't just randomly become overpowered, he slowly grew into that level. Ash first gets Froakie early into the Kalos region, and right away you can already tell Froakie isn't normal. He already abandoned multiple trainers before Ash because none of them were good enough for him. That alone already tells you Froakie had insane battle instincts from the start and wasn't just gonna follow anybody. He only respected Ash because he saw potential in him, and early on, Froakie was already really impressive. Even before evolving, his speed and movement were way above most starter Pokemon. Froakie fought way smarter than most Pokemon too. He relied on speed, dodging, positioning, and precision, instead of just overpowering opponents. That ninja battle style was already there from the beginning. Then Froakie evolves into Frogadier, and this is where his speed starts getting ridiculous. Frogadier was honestly one of Ash's fastest Pokemon already before even becoming Greninja. His mobility was insane, especially when using Cut and Double Team together. And throughout XY, you can slowly see Ash and Frogadier's bond getting stronger and stronger every battle. After Ash evolved his Frogadier into a Greninja, the really big turning point after that is the fight against Sawyer's Sceptile. And honestly, this was one of the best evolution scenes in the whole anime, because you could immediately feel the difference in power. Greninja instantly starts overwhelming Sceptile with pure speed and pressure, and this is where the bond phenomenon starts appearing. Now, the bond phenomenon is honestly one of the coolest transformations Pokemon ever made, because it basically acted like Ash's own version of Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution was the entire gimmick of XY and XYZ. Everybody important had Mega Evolutions. Alain had Mega Charizard X, Sawyer had Mega Sceptile later on, Diantha had Mega Gardevoir, and tons of other trainers had Mega Pokemon too, but Ash didn't have one. So instead of giving Ash a Mega Evolution, the anime basically created Ash Greninja. And honestly, I still think that was a way cooler idea, because instead of just using a stone, Greninja's power literally came from the bond between him and Ash. Their emotions, focus, pain, and battle instincts all sync together into one transformation. And the crazy thing is, Alain literally says Ash Greninja's energy feels similar to Mega Evolution itself. That's huge scaling, because Alain spent almost an entire side series battling Mega Evolution Pokemon all around the world. If he says Greninja feels like Mega Evolution, then that instantly puts Greninja around that level. And honestly, I think people downplay Alain's Charizard way too much. We literally watched Alain's Charizard battle insanely powerful opponents throughout the Mega Evolution specials. This Charizard fought multiple Mega Evolution Pokemon back to back, and even battled legendary Pokemon. Alain's Charizard was honestly one of the strongest non-legendary Pokemon in the anime during XYZ. So for Greninja to even compete with that Charizard is already insane scaling. Now, one of Greninja's craziest feats happens during the battle against Gardevoir, and this is important because Diantha isn't just some random trainer, she's literally the Kalos champion. Before Greninja transformed, Mega Gardevoir was easily controlling the battle, but once Ash Greninja activated, the entire fight changed. Greninja's speed became ridiculous. He was moving so fast, Gardevoir started struggling to fully react to him, and even Diantha herself was shocked by the power jump. And this wasn't even mastered Ash Greninja yet. That's the scary part. The form was still unstable. Ash still couldn't fully handle the connection, and yet Greninja was already pressuring a champion's ace Pokemon. That's why I think Greninja's potential ceiling was absolutely insane. But the form still had major flaws at this point. One of the biggest moments in XYZ is when Ash loses badly to Wulfric's Avalok. And honestly, I think people misunderstand this fight. Greninja losing there doesn't mean he was weak. The problem was Ash himself mentally wasn't stable, and because the bond phenomenon connected both of them together emotionally, the transformation became unstable too. Ash literally collapses from the strain. That's how powerful the bond phenomenon actually was. It wasn't just some normal transformation. Ash physically felt Greninja's pain and exhaustion during battle. So when their minds weren't fully connected, the form became weaker and harder to control. But after Ash trains and reconnects with Greninja mentally, the transformation becomes way more mastered. And once mastered Ash Greninja appears, that's when he starts feeling like a true top tier Pokemon. His speed becomes absolutely absurd. Greninja was already fast before, but after mastering the form, he starts creating after images constantly and dodging attacks midair while counterattacking almost instantly. Then we get into the Kalos League. Against Sawyer, this is honestly one of Greninja's best overall performances in the entire anime. Sawyer had grown massively throughout the series and became one of Ash's smartest rivals ever, and his Mega Sceptile was insanely strong too. It even defeated Pikachu earlier during the battle. But once it came down to Ash Greninja versus Mega Sceptile, Greninja completely took over the fight. The speed difference became too much. Greninja was blitzing around the battlefield, landing hits before Sceptile could properly react, and his giant water shuriken at the end was one of the coldest finishing moves in the whole series. That fight alone honestly proves Mastered Ash Greninja was above a lot of Mega Evolution Pokemon. Then we get to the biggest fight in XYZ, Ash Greninja versus Alan's Mega Charizard X in the Kalos League Finals. And honestly, I still think this is one of the best fights in Pokemon history. The animation, pacing, impact, everything was insane. And honestly, I don't even think Greninja losing was unfair or anything like that, because Alan's Charizard simply had way more experience fighting elite opponents. Greninja had insane talent and speed, but Charizard X had the durability, attack power, and battle experience advantage. And that's what made the fight so close. Greninja is one of the fastest Pokemon Ash has ever owned, yet Charizard X was still able to somewhat keep up with his speed while also tanking massive damage and hitting way harder physically. And honestly, Charizard X probably could have kept going even after the battle ended. That's why this feat is so important, because Greninja didn't almost beat some random Mega Pokemon. He almost defeated one of the strongest Mega Evolution Pokemon in the anime, and Greninja was still relatively inexperienced compared to Alan's Charizard. That's why I honestly believe if Ash kept Greninja after XYZ and continued training with him, Greninja absolutely could have become champion level permanently and maybe even stronger than that. And honestly, even though I really like Lucario and Journeys, I still feel like Greninja had more overall potential. It felt like Ash spent way more time focusing on Lucario. Lucario got constant training, aura mastery, mega evolution, and multiple champion level battles. Meanwhile, Greninja got left behind after XYZ, even though he was already arguably near champion level. And it's kinda crazy, because Greninja even trained Lucario later on. That alone tells you how respected Greninja already was. Now, when it comes to Greninja versus Ash's Charizard, I honestly give it to Greninja. Charizard definitely has more experience and durability, but Greninja just has way too much speed, a type advantage, and the Bond Phenomenon transformation. Since Ash's Charizard never got a Mega Evolution, I just don't think he scales to the same level as Ash Greninja overall. Now, Lucario versus Greninja is way closer. Greninja definitely has the speed advantage, but Lucario has ridiculous aura abilities, insane durability, Mega Evolution, and better overall champion level feats later on in Journeys. And then obviously there's Pikachu. At the end of Journeys, Pikachu defeated Leon's Charizard, who was literally considered one of the strongest Pokemon in the entire world at that point. So I honestly think Pikachu still stays at number 1. So right now, my ranking probably goes Pikachu, Lucario, Greninja, Charizard, but honestly, Greninja is still one of the coolest Pokemon Ash ever had, and I still think if Ash kept training him after XYZ, he could have eventually surpassed almost anybody. And honestly, I might make a full video ranking Ash's top 10 strongest Pokemon after this one, so let me know if you guys want to see that next.